First of all, New Year greetings. It is the first video I'm posting on my channel in this 2025. You guys might have noticed that I have changed the name of my channel. This video and the renaming of my channel emanates from an incident which I encountered very recently on the first day of 2025. Now, that incident made me think to reflect on numerous things. It first started off about religion, followed by India as a society, and as the thoughts progressed about the economic differences between the India and the developed world. On 1st of January this year, I was in Stockholm, Sweden, where I was on vacation. I was there with my family. In the morning, after having breakfast, it was a chilling morning. The temperature was, I guess, was minus 14 degrees centigrade, so quite a bit of chill for me. So I decided to walk up to nearby supermarket. It was about 200-300 meters away. The name of the supermarket is Coop. So I was walking, in that lane with my son. As I approached supermarket, there was on which I heard the chant of Hare Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Guys, I was very pleasantly surprised. Firstly, hearing the chant in the morning on the first day of the year, it looked very auspicious. Secondly, hearing a Hindu chant in a foreign land where the population of Indians is not very high as compared to the English speaking countries. So I stood there for a while to observe the people who were chanting. And I was further surprised to see that most of the people who were chanting were the white people. Most likely they were either Swedish or at least the people of European origin, and very few of them were people of Indian origin. Most likely they looked as if they were tourists like me, who would have joined the procession. And the dress of the people who were chanting that suggested that probably they belonged to the ISKCON mission. Now, this is from where my thinking process started. Now, from there, I recalled my visit to Oslo on the eve of Christmas. From 23rd to 26th of December, I was in Oslo. And for quite many years, I have been visiting Europe during this period. So I knew that the streets of any European country on the eve of Christmas would be completely empty. So as I expected, the from 23rd to 26th, the streets of Oslo were completely empty. All shops were closed, and even most restaurants were closed. So anyone you will find on the street would most likely be someone who would be a tourist there. Now understand, Christmas is a very big festival of Christians. And without a doubt, for them it is as big as Diwali for us. But unlike the Hulla Gulla during Diwali that we have, it is a curfew-like situation in European towns. As I said, it was much expected because it was not the first time that I was in Europe on Christmas. And it was very expected because Christmas I knew was a very private affair for them, and most time they spend with their family. Now my thoughts from there came to the New Year's Eve, just a night before, on 31st December. Then I recall that people in Stockholm, and that I have seen earlier also, they were dining, they were formally dressed, suited, booted, and once the clock struck 11, the people started gathering around, in Gamla Stand. So Gamla Stand, there is a water body, which is part of the sea, I guess. So they gathered around it. Most of them brought their own crackers. Few of them brought wine with them. And till about from 11 till about 12:30 a.m., they all fired the crackers. They enjoyed. They had their wine. They kissed each other as a family, and then they all vanished. It was snowing, and then they all vanished. There was a massive display of fireworks, but not an iota of visible smoke. There were thousands of people were there, as if entire Stockholm has gathered at that small area. But not an incident of any brawl was there. Not any incident of eve teasing was there. And finding drunk people puking on the street, one could have not even thought about it. In contrast to what we see, the full display of vulgarity on New Year's Eve. Yeah, I have been to to Sector 29 on New Year Eve. I've seen both men, women puking. I've been to Connaught Place also. Again, there also I have seen men, women puking on the street, getting into brawls. The heavy display, heavy deputation of cops in those areas. But in Gamla Stand, not even a single cop was there in that massive gathering. Now, among these thoughts, I spent a day, and by the evening, I was thinking, and my thinking process deepened. The fundamental question which came to my mind was: Is the way we live in India got to do anything with our deprived economic situation? Guys, we normally blame for our poverty on the uncontrolled population that we had or that we have, and misrule of and exploitation by British. But are these factors solely responsible or to be blamed for our impoverished condition? So that was the question I was trying to grapple with. And this video is all about to share my thoughts that I went through and my perspective on the reasons for the deprivation of our society. Now let's start from the chant of Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, from where it all started. For that, let us first decode the word Ram. Now, ordinarily, we have been made to believe that Ram is a mythological figure. He is. But over the period of time, we have been trying to humanize him, create a history around him, searching for Ram Setu. I just saw a movie that is Ajay Devgan's Singham, I guess. Singham Returns, or whatever, Singham. So in that, they did show a, a hill in Sri Lanka where they said that Hanuman stepped here, whatever. So what we are trying to humanize Ram and trying to create a history around him over the past decade or so. But then, on the contrary, we also chant Ram Naam Satya Hai. Now, what it translates to? It translates as the Ram is the eternal truth. Now, to understand Ram, let us now decode Satya. Now, Satya is what? Satya is something which is Nitya, that is, which is permanent, which doesn't changes. Satya is something which is unchanged. Now, look at the human form. Now, the human form, or for that matter, anything which is a creation of nature or Prakriti, cannot be Satya. Now, let us examine this statement scientifically. It is a scientific fact that, our body cells, they die and we create new body cells. So, in every 7 years, the whole of the human body goes through a complete transformation, goes through a complete change. As all the body cells we have, they change technically. So, technically, what you see a person today, in next 7 years, his each and every body cell would have changed. So, who is the real person? That body which has got complete transformation over the period of 7 years, or there's something else? Now, let us give it another perspective. Let's look from another perspective. There are about 30 trillion human cells in our body. Also, that same human body contains about 39 trillion bacteria and about 3 to 400 trillion viruses. I again repeat, 3 to 400 trillion viruses. So when we humanize Ram, whom exactly we are referring to? That body which changes over the period of 7 years? Or that body which contains hundreds of trillions of pathogens? And if Ram Nam is Satya and is Nitya, then it can't be that human body which is ephemeral, which is not eternal. Now, understand there is only one truth. Whether you look at Vedant philosophy, whether you look at Quran, whether you look at Bible, whether you look at Sikhism, everything, every religion says what? That there is only one and only one truth, and that is the ultimate truth. And that necessarily has to have no association with Prakriti, because Prakriti, that is nature, anything associated with it cannot be eternal, rather, it has to be ephemeral. So that is one aspect of looking at. Now, let us look at the another aspect. Now, the human body that we worship Ram, if we look into his life as portrayed in Ramcharitmanas or Ramayana, then we find that Ram is an epitome of sacrifice. He is the biggest Tyagi, he is the greatest Tyagi. He quit the kingdom. On the contrary, the people who so called worship Ram or revere him or try to appropriate him as a historical figure are ready to go to any extent to capture power. So, they are worshipping someone who relinquished his power while they are in search of they are in constant pursuit of power. So there is a conflict there. Then we have seen not thousands but lakhs of people being killed in that attempt to capture power. And that history of riots is not new, it is for hundreds of years. Ram conquered Lanka. What did he do? Did he sit on the throne? No, he enthroned Vibhishan, another sacrifice. On the allegations of a dhobi, a washerman, he even abandoned his wife, he sacrificed his pregnant wife. Why? Only to set an example that the rules of morality are same for everyone, be it a king or a pauper. Perhaps moral obligation of a king is higher than that of an ordinary citizen. Now, guys, let us decode Diwali. After Ram, we have tried to decode Satya. Now, let us decode Diwali and draw the comparisons with Christmas. Now, guys, Diwali is celebration of what? It is celebration of Ram's arrival to Ayodhya after his exile was over. So, whom essentially are we welcoming? We are welcoming the epitome of sacrifice, the greatest Tyagi. Now, in celebration of Ram, what we do? Do we demonstrate sacrifice? Whatever we do to celebrate Diwali, is there an element of sacrifice? Or we overindulge in materialistic pleasures? Instead of sacrificing something or giving away something, what we do? We buy new cars, we buy refrigerators, televisions, and now we have even gone to the extent that we buy houses on the occasion of Diwali. There is a vulgar display of wealth and lust of materialistic pleasures. And whom are we worshipping? Someone who all through his life sacrificed. The epitome of sacrifice, the greatest Tyagi. Now look from another aspect. We are decoding Diwali. What we do, we light our houses, we light diyas, we put China made lights. Good, there's light everywhere. But what is it for? Is it our bhakti? Are we worshipping Ram? Or we are manifesting our egos? Think. We try to put more and more lights only to show to others that look, we have spent more, or my house is brighter than yours. Take an example. Since this Yogi Adityanath has come to power in UP, each Diwali what he tries to do, he tries to set a new record of lighting diyas. Why? Is it bhakti? No, only to satisfy his ego that now Hindus are in power, so we have to show it. And is this some kind of greatness? No. It is pure manifestation of empty ego. But did Ram has an ego? No. Ram is one who eats tested half-eaten berries, partially eaten bears. Or by whom? By Shabri. Where is the ego? No ego there. When the Samudra, he refuses to give way for Lanka, for Ram's army, it angers Ram. But what Ram does? Ram pardons him. Where is the ego? Ram kills Ravan. The entire Dashera is all about killing of Ravan. So Ram kills Ravan. What does he do in the end? He tells Lakshman to go and take wisdom from Ram. Where is the ego? It's pure humility. So Ram is all about humility, not about ego. I vividly remember the earlier days of my life, about say you can say 80s. Whatever do we do today, we back then we used to do the same things, but on a much smaller scale. And with the passive time, this play has become more and more vulgar, more and more materialistic. And instead of worshipping, we have brought Diwali to a mere show of wealth and our lust. Take another look on this entire thing, and then I'll tell you how is it connected with my thoughts and how it has got something to do with our impoverished state. Now, when we see people celebrating construction of Ram temple, am I happy? Part of me, yes, maybe. Part of me is not, certainly. Now, what have we done in that? In the entire legal battle, we have not only humanized to whom we call as the ultimate truth, the Satya, the Brahm, but we have made him a litigant. And look at the irony. Someone who has the duty and power to give ultimate justice, we have reduced him to a litigant in a court. Now, when we fail to get justice from the highest courts, what we do? We still say that God will do justice. So when the courts fail, we rely on God. But here, what have we done? We have brought God as a litigant to seek justice from us, the human beings, the mortals. So, irony is that Ram, the ultimate truth, is seeking relief from humans. Unfortunately, the most pitiful thing is that not a single person raised his voice. There was not a single sane voice that said that if you want to fight a political battle, if you want to satisfy your egos, please be my guest. But don't reduce my Ram to a litigant. Don't degrade my Ram. There was not a single sane voice. Now, for a second, let's leave it aside because wisdom of different level is required to understand this, and it is not in everyone's grasp to understand this. Now, when we built the Ram temple and brag over its size, the money spent on it, its grandness, its grandeur, this is what? This is bhakti. Now, again, it's simple, vulgar display of ego. That my temple is bigger than yours. The point is, as I said, that towards the end I'll try to link it with our degraded economic condition and why we are so different from the developed world. Now the point is, how are these all linked to what I said earlier, the economic degradation of India as a country in comparison to the developed Western world? Look, most Muslims in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh are whom? They are the converts from Hinduism. Historically, they were all Hindus who got converted to Islam, few maybe voluntarily, but large part of them were forcefully converted, and maybe some converted due to socio-economic factors. This means that at their core, the nationals of all these three countries, that India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they share the same ancestry, same culture, same traditions as we do as Hindus. If we remove the layers of politics and identity, then our essence is nothing but a shared humanity. This divisiveness just doesn't harm our social fabric. It had also hampered our economic growth. Look, a divided society is easier to be manipulated, but it's very hard for it to progress. Imagine what we could have achieved if we focused on unity instead of constantly fighting. That I may be saying in the context of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh as a united country, but look, that is undeniable truth that we have now partitioned and India is a separate country. I'm only making this video from the India geography as a perspective. I'm not talking about, two severed arms of India, because India as a society is also a very divided society. Now, entire Europe throughout 20th century fought most destructive wars. The World War One, the World War Two, the two of the biggest wars. Now, if we read through the medieval history, we'll find that the enmity between England and France was way beyond the enmity which we have between India and Pakistan. Anglo-French wars dates back from 14th century till about 18th century. And yet, in world wars, they were part of Allied army, Allied forces, and presently they are part of NATO. Germanic countries, the Prussia, Austria, they had wars with France and England for centuries. And in World War II, the Allied forces decimated Germany and even divided it into two parts. And now do you see the collaboration? All these European countries are the major suppliers of weaponry to Ukraine in war against Russia. So, historically, who were foes are best of the best friends now. I'll give you another example. Sweden and Denmark, they might be very small countries, very low in population, and in very tough terrain. Even they have fought bloodiest of the battles. Now together they form a separate group within Europe, which is called as Scandinavia. and then thrive on shared heritage, and they also have their separate council called Nordic Council. About 29 countries in Europe, you can have a borderless travel, a visa-less travel. This transformation in Europe happened because of humanity's capacity. The main something which the main essence of humanity, that is to forgive and cooperate. Now, if in case you would have read the Yuval Noah Harari, so he differentiates between why the differentiates between humans and chimps, and what he says is that the reason that human beings have developed and not the chimps is because human beings have they know how to collaborate with each other and how to cooperate with each other, which animals don't. So that forgiveness, cooperation, collaboration, that is the very essence of humanity as a race. And in present times, it is vital for sustaining peace in the interconnected and interdependent world. Ramayana tells us exactly this thing: forgiveness, cooperation, collaboration. I'll give examples. Ram pardoned Ravan. In the end, Ram did, after killing Ravan, Ram pardoned him, said that you will get a seat in heaven. Ram, despite the avatar himself, the God himself, he sought help from Hanuman and Sugriv. So he collaborated with Hanuman and Sugriv. So forgiveness you have seen, collaboration you have seen. Ram relinquished throne for Bharat, and Bharat relinquished throne for Ram. So what are the virtues we learn? Is to sacrifice for others. But have we learnt these virtues from Ramayana? Or we have used Ramayana to only show off and pamper our egos? Let's have a relook at Ram's life as depicted in Ramayana or Ramcharitmanas. Ram is the epitome of tyag, sacrifice. He gave away his kingdom. He gave up his kingdom. He lived in exile, and he abandoned his pregnant wife only to uphold moral standards of his time. And those standards have not changed over the period of time. The morality has not changed. In contrast to with so-called devotees of Ram today, or so-called devotees of Ram today, not devotees of Ram. The power struggles, riots, vulgar display of ego, wealth, they are the norms. Is this what Ram stood for? Of course not. So when we say in Diwali we have to celebrate the arrival of Ram, essentially it means that we have to celebrate the arrival of traits of Ram within us. The traits of humanity, sacrifice, collaboration, cooperation, forgiveness, and above all, simplicity. Now, as I said, how does it all connect to India's economic stagnation and backwardness compared to the Western world? The answer lies in the mindset. We have turned religion, which should be a path to transcendence, which should be a path to transcendence and higher thinking, into a tool for flaunting our wealth, the power, empty ego, indulgence and overindulgence in materialistic pleasures, and self importance. This shift reflects the same mindset that prioritizes self interest and self gratification over national interest. So, the mindset what we have for our religion, the same mindset then delve into the national interests. Look, when we became independent, it was an opportunity for us to rebuild the nation, to lay the foundation of a prosperous and united India. Well, Singapore, for that example, it was formed, I guess, in 1965. So, where Singapore stands and where we are. Now, in those critical years, the early years, the nascent years, when we were yet a baby, for next decade, what did we do? We were tangled in resolving issues of citizenship and identity. Instead of focusing on greater task of nation building, we were still saying that who would be an Indian, right? It's and for your reference, Indian Citizenship Act itself was enacted as late as 1955, almost about 8 years after the independence, and we have. In modern times, we have again opened the same Pandora box after 60 years of enactment of that act, largely to keep an ordinary citizen occupied in absurdity. Now, as I've stated earlier, the Muslims who were involved in riots, whether they were from Pakistan, Bangladesh, or India, they were not different from us. They were the Hindus only. As we are, and in fact, the people who were actually involved in the conflict, a large proportion of them were converts who shared the same ancestry, same culture. In fact, if in case you go on the Punjab side of Pakistan, there you will see all those Punjabi surnames. Most of them are basically Jat Sikhs, or they were Jat Sikhs. Okay, so who were fighting in those riots? They were actually the converts from Pakistan, from Muslim sides. Yet, instead of recognizing our shared roots and brotherhood and working towards a common future, both Hindus and Muslims, at the time of partition and presently also, they are engaged in battles driven by what? Pity, self interest, and political interests of not their own, of some other. That is, the politicians who incite the violence and the who incite the divisiveness. Now, this divisiveness, which is fueled by narrow ambitions of those who incite violence, it keeps us distracted from the from the real work of building a strong, unified, forward-looking nation, a forward-looking society, a strong and prosperous society. Now, we have allowed our shared heritage to be overshadowed by mistrust and conflict, setting a precedent that till date continue to haunt us, and the way the time is progressing, it will continue to haunt the future generations also. Look, over the period of time, we as a society have reduced a religion to mere a tool to satisfy our egos. Consequently, it has killed our rational thinking. And understand, if we can exploit God for the satisfaction of our ego, to capture power, to display for vulgar display of wealth, then imagine to what extent we as a society can go on in exploiting fellow humans. Just imagine. While the nations in the West are, or they were, investing in education, innovation, societal structures that promotes growth, prosperity, we are still caught up in rituals. I just sent a message to one of my journalist friend yesterday. So I said that Indian education system is so great. What I studied, my son is also studying the same thing after 30 years. And I gave an example. Who was the first Indian to win a Nobel Prize for physics? C.V. Raman. I also learned this. My kids are also have learned this. Who was the first Indian born person to biologist to win a Nobel Prize in biology? It was Hargobind Khurana. It is still Hargobind Khurana. Who was the first, who is the great mathematician of India? Srinivas Ramanujan, continues to be Ramanujan. When India was much poorer than what we are now, or when India was even, you know, under colonial rule, we were still able to create some great minds, the great researchers. What have we done after independence? Or what are we doing? Copying, pasting the other business models. So, coming back to the topic, instead of channelizing the teachings of Ram, that is, of discipline, justice, humility, selflessness, collaboration, forgiveness, we have reduced Ram to a symbol of fake thumping of chest. And this isn't about temples or traditions. It's about our collective priorities as a nation. So what we do as in following our religion, the same things, the same sentiment we display when we think about nation. And until we introspect and realign those priorities, the gap between us and the developed world will only widen. It will continue to widen. So we'll never be able to catch up. Understand the true devotion to understand the true devotion to anyone lies in embodying his values, his virtues, not flaunting symbols, which we do normally. True progress begins when we rise above our ego, the empty ego, I must say, and start building a society with deeply rooted principles of justice, morality, collective well being. Religion and belief systems form very foundation of any society. For any society, the foundation is its religion and a belief system. Religion is very important because religion is nothing but a path of dharma, the path of righteousness. That is what religion is for me. And when that foundation itself becomes corrupted, the entire society's moral compass is compromised. We cannot build a high moral society on a corrupted foundation. And when society lacks morality, it's all chaos everywhere. The chaos becomes inevitable. And in the chaos, there cannot be any progress. There can't be any harmony. There can be only destruction and destruction and destruction. Hence, I believe that for our backwardness, for our poverty, external factors may be relevant, like that of British loot. But it might have put us behind a bit. But our present misery is mainly because of our internal factors. And what are they? Not respecting our religion, not respecting our heritage, and not understanding our culture. So these were the thoughts, I went through moment I heard Hare Rama Hare Krishna chant throughout the day. I kept thinking, and that is what my thoughts culminated into. And in the end, my call for action would be that we must imbibe the true values preached by Ram and not by creating history around him. Jai Siya Ram.